Hi there, Coach Sage of SageRunning.com here with a training talk rant, toughest workouts of my life so far. And I'm just sitting here recovering. I got the Rapid Reboot, it's a sponsor plug, Rapid Reboot recovery boots on. It's like an inflatable massage. It's hooked up to this unit because I just did a 20 miler this morning on pavement, Boulder Bike Path pavement. It was nothing glamorous though. It was just a steady one. You can check it out on Strava. There wasn't anything real glamorous or sexy about it, though. We think of like key tough workouts, and I think they get over glamorized sometimes. And that's kind of why I wanted to do this talk, was talk about some of the hardest sessions I've done in my life and put it in context with the level I was at in terms of racing, what age I was at, and why a lot of the sessions were probably mistakes. Either they were too hard for my fitness at the level, or they weren't specific for the goal race that I was trying to target at the time. And, maybe you know these people, maybe you've made this mistake in your running career, but you don't want to be the workout warrior, right? Person that smashes all these incredible workouts, maybe puts them on Strava or posts about them on social media, but then they race at a much lower level, right? You don't want to be racing, doing workouts at this level and then racing down here at this level. Ideally you're kind of doing workouts and racing at around the same level, or maybe you're even exceeding your expectations and you're able to race at a level above where you work out at. And, through my running career in the last 2 decades, basically running any service, any distance, I've seen that a lot of times when you smash a bunch of workouts, sometimes you don't race as well. You either peak too soon or you come out flat in the race because you're overtrained and didn't rest up enough. Whereas when I run some of my best races and performances, it's more I've just been putting in some really consistent, moderate effort, or at least nothing to write home about workouts that have just piled up on each other and just been really consistent. And they were definitely challenging. And definitely if you're smashing workouts, it's a good sign for your fitness a lot of times. But if it's not all together in the right training plan, it might not come together on race day. So let's get started. We'll rewind way back to my high school career. And this was freshman year of high school, cross-country season. Had a really good team. I was top 5 varsity my freshman year. We were ranked 4th in the state of Oregon, large school division. Had some really fast guys on the team. We had 5 guys basically under 16:30. I was a good solid 4th or 5th guy running 16:23 as a freshman. And the season had been going well, but comes time to taper for state, our coach decides we're going to do this sharpen up workout, which I think stalled me actually. And it was a session of 8 by 200 meters in about 31 to 30 seconds, or a little faster at the end, with a really short 2-minute rest, 200-meter jog in between. And it was a hard session for me. For the top guys on the team, it wasn't a problem. They were more speed-oriented guys. One of our top guys had run 4:17, 4:18 for a mile that year. He was a great, cross-country runner, very fast guys. A lot of guys that could run way under 2 minutes for 800, where here I was really struggling with lactic acid on this workout, and a 30-second 200 is still like a sprint for me. These guys could, pop a 27-second 200 at the end of the workout like it wasn't a problem. And granted, this was in high school, so we had gone from running a lot of great 5K workouts, in my opinion, 5 by 1,000 meters, 5 by 1 kilometer, even 3 by a mile, even some 800-meter repeats, to all of a sudden having to sprint basically these 200-meter repeats and go into lactic acid type of area intensity. And I just remember, being keeled over on the track, just thinking really uncoordinated form, trying to sprint these 30-second 200s. And it was a week before states. It was a week before the state championship. I came out, my legs felt totally dead at state, and ran a really subpar race. A lot of my teammates did. And I like to, sometimes trace it back to that workout. And, it was kind of a theme in high school track running, doing workouts like, we do session 4 by 400 meters, really, really fastest possible average. And there would be a lot of lactic acid, and it would hurt me. It would hurt me sometimes. And we'll fast forward in my high school career. I was really frustrated trying to run the 1,500 meters. It's basically the metric mile. For you, those of you that don't know, I really wanted to run under 4 minutes for 1,500 meters in high school, and I wasn't even close to it. My PR was 4:09, but I was really frustrated, especially like junior year. I was like, I just need to do more speed to break through. And ironically, in college, when I did more 10K and marathon training, I was able to run 3:55 in the 1500. But back then in high school, we were running lower mileage, higher intensity stuff. And I just thought I needed more speed, faster 400 meter repeats. So I did a session once on a weekend, outside of practice even. Drove into town with my dad to go to the track on a Saturday. And I said, I'm going to do, 8 by 400 really fast and really make it hurt. And, if my dad was going to the track with me, it was going to be a hard session because usually my parents would drop me off at the track. I'd do my own thing. But if someone was there holding the stopwatch, watching me do a workout, I could run a lot faster. It was a lot more inspiring and motivating. So my dad was there holding the stopwatch to do a session of 8 by 400 meters, averaging 64 to 63 seconds a 400 meter, taking a pretty long rest, 3-minute rest, 200 meter jog in between each thing. But granted, at the time, my mile race pace, my 1500 meter race pace was about 66 seconds per 400, and I'm trying to run 4-minute 1500, 64 seconds. I'm running 63-second 400 meter repeats. It's basically almost my 800 meter race pace at the time, and I am just swimming in lactic acid and pain. I felt lactic acid on the first rep, I think, but yeah, it was a really brutal session, and something that really challenged me at the time. But yeah, it was too hard, too much, and I ended up running a lot slower in the 1500 and 3K later that year. I was just really, I think I just kind of burned myself out basically that season, over peaked. And, doing the session with poor form, breaking down form, and developing high amounts of blood acidity, lactic acid, could be a detrimental thing at a certain point. You need to be able to buffer it at some point if you run 800 meters or 1500 meters, a mile, or even 5K. But at a certain point, you're going to face some trade-offs. And that session was just way too hard. And mentally, I don't even know how I got through it because I don't think I do that session now. It's definitely not at altitude. So, that was a tough session. And, fast forward to college running. I was really lucky in college. My coach, Robert Rojo Johnson, co-founder of Let'sRun.com, as well as his trusty sidekick, JK, they always gave us workouts that were a lot more on the conservative side. And they taught us to train with a purpose, and not to always just bash our heads into the wall and push as hard as we could on a lot of sessions. A lot of sessions were about holding back, and it was a very 10K marathon focus group. Even for the mid distance, the milers and the 1500 meter and 800 meter runners, we were all trained very aerobically, and so a lot of it was lower intensity. So in college, I can't say there were too many sessions where I really overtrained a ton or had any workouts to really write home about. There was one session when I deviated from my coach. I wasn't listening to him. It was my super senior year at Cornell, and I didn't have cross-country eligibility, but I still could run for the team in track. And so this was 2008, the fall of 2008. I was working out with the cross-country team, but I was training for the New York City Marathon. And I had dabbled all late fall in pretty high competitive road races, from the Falmouth 7-mile road race in August out in Massachusetts to the New Haven 20K, the USATF 20K National Championships in September. And I was all building towards a New York City Marathon debut. And granted, I had run 2:21 in the marathon the year before to qualify for Olympic trials my junior year. So I was all cocky and full of piss and vinegar and thought I could run under 2:20 at New York. Little did I know that New York's it's pretty hilly. It's a challenging course. There's a lot of bridges, the weather, the wind could play a role. It could be kind of cold. And it's New York City Marathon. It's the biggest marathon in the world. Very competitive event. I wasn't training very specifically. I was over racing. But one session I did, and I remember because the cross country team, we would do a session of 16 to 20 by 400 meters with a 45-second rest in between. And we'd usually do it. It wouldn't be a killer workout. You'd do it around 5K pace. For a lot of guys, it'd be around 5K pace. Maybe you'd throw in some fast ones. But this particular session, the team was doing 20. And I come in and I say, oh, you know what? I'm going to do that workout. And then I'm going to add 10 more. So I'm going to do a session of 30 by 400 meters with a 45-second rest in between each hard 400. And to make things extra hard that day, coach had us doing every fourth rep in about 66, 65, or even 64 seconds. So we were running much faster, usually most of them around 70 seconds, 69 seconds, but only a 45-second rest. This is a very short 100-meter jog, basically. And so we did the session, and the team got done with 20, and they went on their cool down because they were being smart. I was marathon training, supposedly, so I did 30 by 400, and I cranked it up a notch. So in the end, I averaged 69 seconds for 30 by 400 meters with a 45-second rest. I remember my legs feeling pretty dead at the end of it, and I think that really put the nails in the coffin for my specific marathon training for New York City that fall, where I kind of neglected doing more tempo runs and long runs and aerobic work, and got into doing too much intensity. I also did like 10 by a mile too fast, and ended up coming out at New York and just totally hitting the wall in the last 10K, running the slowest marathon of my career by far. That year, I was actually walking into Central Park during the New York City Marathon. I went from running 5:20 mile pace to running over 10-minute mile pace. That was a pretty significant hitting the wall experience, where I was so dizzy I thought I'd fall and give myself a concussion because I'd hit my head and not be able to control myself. But I learned my lesson. I learned my lesson through there, and fast forward to post-collegiate running, some of the hardest sessions that I've done in my career would be, marathon training at the Hanson's Brooks Distance Project right out of college. This was the fall, winter of 2010. We had just run Chicago Marathon. We had run U.S. Cross Country Club Nationals. Didn't do very well in the 10K there. And so we had this really hard session, and I link to it. I have a YouTube video of this session, actually. It was 2 by 4 miles at 5:10 per mile pace, with a short rest. I think, the rest was probably a half-mile jog. So it was probably a 5-minute rest total, but it was 2 by 4 miles at 5:10 pace. The caveat was it was very cold. It was very snowy on this bike path, and there was actually some slippage. There were patches of ice, and it was a very scary workout. And I don't even know how. I didn't quite hit 5:10 pace on it, but my teammates did, and you could see me struggling at the end of it. But we were still running 20:30, 20:40 for 4 miles twice over on this snow and ice in sub-freezing temperatures with a lot of clothes on and heavy gear. I remember we were actually wearing heavy training shoes because we wanted more traction. So we were wearing pretty heavy shoes doing that workout, and it was a really tough session. Mentally, after the first mile, I was just like, I can't do it. There's no way I'm going to get through this. But, had a lot of fast teammates pull me along. That always helps in these sessions. But, after that, springboard into running the 104 half marathon that winter with a lot of my teammates running half marathon PRs. So it was a tough session, got through it. Another session we did at Hanson's Brooks that was pretty hard, marathon training. I was training for the Boston Marathon in 2000. Gosh, I don't even know the years now. I guess it was 2010 as well. It was my first marathon for Hanson's Brooks, spring of 2010. So it was actually before. I'm going backwards now chronologically. But I'd averaged 130 miles a week in training for 7 consecutive weeks in a row during that segment, with a high of 140 miles a week, averaging probably close to 6-minute mile pace on a lot of those miles. But we'd have these 20-mile long run sessions that would be very, very hard. And I remember one of them that I did. I was really proud of it when I did it, but I ended up crashing and burning at Boston that year with a bonking really hard in the last 10 miles, basically, running the second slowest marathon of my career at Boston. And this was, a while ago. But we trained really hard, and so I did these 20-mile long runs in about an hour 55. So 20-mile long run, hour 55, 5:45 per mile pace average. Nothing to write home about for someone trying to qualify for the Olympic trials, except the caveat was between miles 15 and 18, we had go miles. And the coaches would say you had to run faster than marathon race pace, which for us at the time was 5:17 per mile pace. Now, you get pretty tired after 15 miles at 5:45 pace, and these would be on gravel roads in Michigan, sometimes in adverse weather conditions. And we would try to accelerate from 5:40 pace to 5:15 pace or faster. And on this one session, I went too hard. I dropped my teammates who ended up running 2:16 and 2:17 at Boston. I ran 2:24 at Boston that year. And I dropped them in this workout, though. And I was like, I thought meant I was really fit. But I remember pushing so hard on those go miles that I didn't just run marathon race pace. I decided I was going to run 3 miles all under 5 minute per mile pace. So get to mile 15 and I'm trying to run 3 miles in a sub 15 minute time after in the middle of this 20 mile long run, which we finished in an hour 55. So we'd averaged pretty fast pace for 20 miles, and I was able to run a 14:55 3 mile at the end of it. But it took everything out of me. It took my race out of me, and I ended up having really tired legs on race day about 3 weeks later. So, you know, workouts with overtraining, they usually all mesh together, and it's not just a single workout that makes or breaks you. It's usually a combination or a sequence of workouts and doing the wrong types of workouts. But you don't want to overextend yourself because it could lead to overtraining and injury. And I'll do one more workout example since this talk is really long now. Still getting my legs massaged though. It feels nice. It's all puffy. It's pressing in. The long runs I've done as a professional ultra runner now out here in Boulder, Colorado. A couple years ago, 2015, I was training for the LA Marathon, USATF Marathon Championships 2015 in LA. I had just raced the USA Cross Country Nationals here in Boulder. It was a 12K, like 3 days before this run, and I'll link to this video at the end or in the description below. I did a 24-mile long run out here in Boulder at altitude. We're 5,200 feet at the reservoir. So it's on some dirt roads, but it's relatively flat. But in this 24-mile long run, I averaged 5:40 per mile pace, and it was a fartlek session, or interval surge session, at least I should call it, where I did 8 by 3 minutes hard, 2 minutes easy in the second half. So it was more of a pace change, inconsistent pace change, and I'd split some miles under 5:20 doing that. Most of the miles are probably around 5:30 average, but it was doing these faster surges at 5 minute mile pace, a little faster than 5 minute mile pace, and then to average overall for 24 miles, 5:40 pace was a very, very hard session for me here at altitude. I usually say the rough conversion's about 10 seconds per mile. It's 10 seconds per mile harder up here. So, you know, if you could run 5:40 pace up here at 5,000 feet, maybe at sea level you could run maybe 10 seconds per mile faster at the same heart rate relative. But, you know, that's roughly speaking. So that was a really hard session, probably one of the hardest sessions I've done as a post-collegiate ultra marathon runner in my career out here in Boulder. But yeah, still learning, always learning. Don't want to push the envelope. With training, you don't want to push too hard too soon. A lot of times, it's like pacing out a marathon or pacing out a long run or pacing out a 5K or 10K, right? You don't want to start out too fast and rig up in the middle and then get sloppy form and be thrashing and be in a lot of pain. You want to just slowly squeeze down the pain. And, you know, even pace efforts do require an increase in effort, and negative splits require a really big increase in effort. But you should always be able to negative split a lot of your workout sessions, even if they're almost VO2 max types of interval sessions. You know, if someone says, hey, you need to kick on this last repeat and make it seem like a kick at the end of your race where you sprint the last 200 meters, you should be able to do it. You don't always have to do it in workouts, but you should have that capacity. Whereas if you're slowing down in the last couple repeats, sometimes that could be more detrimental, especially to shorter distance running, 5K, 10K racing, for example. But, you know, marathon workouts, sometimes it's better to get in the distance at a more moderate intensity and a more moderate quality and get in the distance of the session rather than always just worrying about smashing your speed out or making sure you know, really go fast on this tempo run or these tempo repeats. Whereas you need to really do a long run and have a more of an up-tempo session at a slightly slower pace, just so you can be more consistent, because consistency is king, staying healthy is king in the sport. It's what I've learned, and it's what I'm really thankful for. But yeah, always a process and something I really enjoy. You got to enjoy the process. You got to enjoy the tough days and workouts, even though every time I dread a hard session and I think, man, this is going to suck, but it's involuntary fatigue. It's voluntary fatigue. You're choosing to do this. You're choosing to challenge yourself physically and mentally and put yourself out there. So, and improve your fitness. So improve your fitness, improve your health, have fun with the process, maybe train with some training partners who are faster than you and slightly slower than you at times. But that's my spiel on toughest workouts of my life so far. Just trying to be consistent right now though. So hope your fall running's going well, or spring if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, and stay tuned for more Sage Running videos.